Breaking news today: Putin's political bet could endanger the Ukraine conflict. Moscow's already exhausted troops in Ukraine could be harmed by President Putin's strategy ahead of Russia's next election. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed Monday that presidential elections scheduled for March would go ahead as planned despite the special military operation in Ukraine, Reuters reported on Monday. Putin has not yet confirmed his re-election. In its most recent update on the conflict in Ukraine, the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense remarked that Putin's campaign would likely center on the common themes of protecting Russian citizens from external enemies, and that the Kremlin would try to steer clear of unpopular policy moves in the months leading up to the election. It is therefore highly unlikely that any further mobilization wave will be implemented before the March 2024 presidential election, according to British intelligence. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu stated last week that no further mobilization efforts were planned in light of the widespread unpopularity of Putin's partial mobilization last fall, which caused hundreds of thousands of Russians to flee the country in an effort to avoid being ordered to the front lines. Russia's offensives against Ukraine may suffer if further mobilization is delayed, as Moscow's troops have complained of low morale, poor training, and lack of support in the fight against Kyiv's ongoing counteroffensive. Professor Mark N. Katz of George Mason University's Schar School of Policy and Government told Newsweek on Tuesday that the British intelligence assessment could be correct regarding Putin's plan to halt mobilizations, and that this will weaken the possibility of a Russian offensive against Ukraine. It may be, though, that Putin was not planning any such offensive but is just focusing on the defensive aim of holding on to the Ukrainian territory that Russia now occupies, Katz wrote to Newsweek in an email. Cornell Associate Professor of History and Director of Teaching and Learning at Cornell's Washington, D.C. campus David Silby agreed that Putin will remain on the defensive in the coming months, arguing that Ukraine's offensive will be hampered by the onset of winter. Postponing mobilizations, Silby told Newsweek in an email, doesn't necessarily hurt the Russian militarily too much in the current fight against Kyiv because casualty rates are down among Putin's troops and the Ukrainians are pushing forward along a fairly narrow axis, allowing the Russians to concentrate their defenders. The big risk is that Ukraine does manage a breakthrough and cut off the Crimea, even partially, said Silby. That would be a terrible blow for Putin. Kyiv's effort to reclaim occupied territory in the east and southeast has been marked by incremental but consistent gains in recent months, and the Institute for the Study of War previously assessed that Putin was preparing for a long war in Ukraine. Other experts have hypothesized that Putin, hoping for former President Donald Trump's re-election, wants to delay the fighting until after the November 2024 U.S. election. The ex-president, along with a number of other Republican lawmakers, has demanded that the United States cut back or even end its military assistance to Ukraine. Putin may be disappointed in his expectations about U.S. domestic politics, Katz said on Tuesday, but if this occurs, then Russia can undertake an offensive against a weakened Ukraine that is much more likely to succeed.